So first pick on my list of things I would do leading up to the DOT physical is going to be getting enough of the minerals potassium, magnesium, and calcium. So in that last video, we spoke about sodium and its potential to elevate blood pressure leading up to a DOT physical, and just in general, it's not the best thing for blood pressure in excess. And most Americans, due to the standard American diet, get well in excess of the RDA, which stands for recommended daily allowance of sodium. Now, I want you to think of sodium sort of like pain and suffering in life, meaning you don't have to go out of your way to get it. It kind of just happens, right? You never have to make a plan or a deliberate effort to, have a hard time or to suffer. Kind of life throws stuff at you, throws adversity at you, and it's going to happen without you even trying. But enjoyment or pleasure, on the other hand, is something you kind of have to try for, right? You have to set goals. You have to try to go out of your way in order to enjoy things and have a nice time. You have to make a deliberate effort. Potassium and magnesium are a little bit elusive in that way as nutrients. Sodium, you can get enough of just stepping out of your house. You'll get enough sodium. Wake up in the morning, you get enough sodium. Meaning it's kind of in everything, guys. That's all I mean by that, is it's in most processed and packaged foods in abundance. And most people, at least in the United States, Canada, countries like that, are getting well in excess of the RDA, again, which is recommended daily allowance of sodium. Very few people are going to be sodium deficient. Potassium and magnesium, on the other hand, are sort of more elusive minerals. So we'll go over some of the foods that they are in. You're probably not going to be surprised to see that it's more of the healthy list of foods and not the junk foods. Calcium, it can kind of go either way. Calcium is abundant in dairy products, and dairy products often, could be paired with foods that aren't the healthiest things, milkshakes, ice cream, pizza. But calcium is also occurs in some healthy foods too. So I'll quickly cover some examples of magnesium-rich foods and give you guys some ideas as to where you can obtain more of the mineral magnesium in your diet. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that if you're allergic to any of these foods, then don't eat them, and that's not where you're going to get your magnesium from. All right, so to start the list off, avocados. Avocados are, in addition to a great source of healthy fat, they're high in monounsaturated fats. Avocados contain a significant amount of magnesium. Another food, this is more of a category, but nuts and seeds, with specific examples including almonds, cashews, and Brazil nuts. But nuts and seeds, if you can tolerate them, for me personally, they're a little bit too rough on my intestines. So the texture of them, they're kind of too sharp, too abrasive. I don't really digest them well. But for the people that can tolerate nuts and seeds, that would be a great idea, because what you're going to get in that one food category, they're very high in healthy fats. That has a lot of advantages. They tend to have a decent amount of protein, maybe not as good of protein or bioavailable as the protein in animal foods, but they do have protein. Additionally, you're going to get some fiber, which I talk about in some of my other videos, how important it is to hit that RDA with fiber. And lastly, for this video, you're getting a decent amount of magnesium. So good amount of bang for your buck with one food category. And, if I were trying to get more of the mineral magnesium in preparation for my DOT physical, I'd probably go with that category. So another one would be legumes. A lot of people may not know what legumes refer to. It's just the family of foods that include foods like beans, lentils, chickpeas, things like that. If it were me personally, I would go with beans. I probably would not, because soybeans are in this list. I don't have time to get in it in this video. It's a blood pressure focused video, but I would eat as little soy as possible for a whole different set of reasons that I can't get into now. But beans, again, you're going to have a low glycemic index source of carbohydrates. You're going to get a lot of fiber, and you're going to pick up some magnesium there. Another good whole food source of magnesium. Whole grains can be decent sources of magnesium. So stuff like oatmeal, barley, foods like that. And then just quickly moving through the rest of the list, fatty fish, so fish like salmon, mackerel, halibut, good amount of magnesium. And then this one is a really affordable food that's available almost in every grocery store and digests really easily. Bananas. But most people tolerate bananas pretty well. For $1 and change or $2, usually you can get a bundle of bananas. So pretty affordable, pretty healthy. Good source of magnesium right there. I know I personally do well with bananas. They're a good source of carbs that my body seems to tolerate well. And then almost at the end of the list, I'm going to save the most interesting one for last. So second to last here on the list is going to be leafy greens. So leafy green vegetables, in addition to getting all of those other great what are called phytochemicals or phytonutrients. So those are the things that really, really important to help keep you healthy. There are vitamins in there like A, C, and K, but they're also a good source of magnesium. And I have to mention fiber because I always talk about it, but leafy greens are a great source of fiber as well. So probably the one that you would expect the least on the list, but it's also the highest in magnesium, meaning you don't have to eat much to get a decent amount of magnesium. In 1 ounce of dark chocolate, you're going to be able to get about 15% of the daily value of magnesium. So dark chocolate is known for good antioxidant and polyphenol content, but it's also, really high in minerals like iron, magnesium. I absolutely love dark chocolate. And something else to know about dark chocolate as opposed to milk chocolate is basically candy in my opinion. Dark chocolate is more of a food, and dark chocolate is something that if I were a trucker, I would personally be enjoying dark chocolate because it actually also has some focus and stimulant properties to it. So might actually be nice on a certain morning to, substitute for some coffee or something like that when I had some miles ahead of me, that I wanted to get done. But dark chocolate, really rich in magnesium. And again, just a couple ounces are getting you a good amount of magnesium. So that's kind of cool to know there. So potassium-rich foods, there is thankfully some overlap with foods that are rich in magnesium, which makes it easy to get your potassium and magnesium in one place, but some differences. So good example of a food that has both potassium and magnesium is going to be bananas. We just spoke about that for magnesium. Once again, avocados. So in one spot, you're getting those healthy fats. You're getting the potassium and the magnesium. Don't need to go to separate foods. Look to separate foods for that. Another one would be spinach. So spinach falls under the category of leafy green vegetables. Good source of magnesium, but also potassium. You heard me speak about beans in the magnesium discussion. They're also a decent source of potassium. So dairy products. I personally don't like to go crazy with in terms of having them be a staple in my diet. I'm relatively prone to acne, and I do tend to get acne flares from too much dairy. But dairy can be a good source of protein. It has a good amount of whey protein and casein protein in it. Also, you're going to get a good amount of calcium, which we discussed is, important to help the blood vessels relax and conducive to a good blood pressure. And you're going to get some potassium there. Finishing up the list, some forms of fish and fruits such as oranges, apricots, dried fruits, also good sources of potassium. So as you can see, guys, the whole foods list, those categories, your vegetables, your fruits, your healthy proteins, you're not going to get a lot of these wonderful minerals that have all these great benefits, including blood pressure, from the the dead foods, the things that are, you're going to find in convenience stores or at gas stations and things like that. It's all of those wonderful, fresh, whole foods that are going to deliver all these benefits to you. Okay, so sticking to that same format that we used in the last video of what I would avoid, we're going to cover the why aspect of this. Some of you may be curious as to why these particular minerals are helpful for supporting a healthy blood pressure. So it has to do with helping blood vessels relax. As I explained in that last video, when blood vessels constrict, also known as vasoconstriction, that can result in elevations of blood pressure. So the simple version, without getting too deep into it, is minerals like potassium and magnesium, they're going to help blood vessels relax, which is what allows them to dilate and support a normal, healthy blood pressure. And that's what we want. Now, for the timing aspect of this, we always leave off each section with when. After we cover the what and why, we go over how far out, would I be doing this prior to my DOT physical. So this is an interesting one. I would say because this is, these are nutrients that have an RDA associated with it, meaning the human body needs a minimum amount day in and day out to function optimally and to maintain optimal health. They've been heavily studied. They're nutrients. So ideally, you would be doing this year round. What I would be doing is trying to eat a healthy diet year round over the road and not really even be changing anything leading up to the DOT physical. But that's an ideal sort of pie in the sky situation. And things don't always go according to plan, or we don't always have an optimal circumstance. So just like how in the other video I said, I would particularly emphasize this a week out or a day out. For this, my pick is going to be, a week out if you can. Really pay attention to your potassium, magnesium, and calcium intake. Be very conscious of it. Try to go, get more of the foods that I listed earlier, and hope for the best. Next pick on my list of things I would be doing leading up to the DOT physical is going to be prioritizing my sleep. Getting enough high quality sleep is going to be of crucial importance leading up to the DOT physical. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I'm just listing off generically healthy things that are, good for health in a vague kind of general sense. Everything on this list, not only is it going to be good for general health, but it's going to have specific relevance to blood pressure, which is what the video is focused on. So I do want you to be patient and see that I will explain the mechanism as to how getting enough good quality sleep leading up to the DOT physical can help support a healthy blood pressure. It's very, very crucial for doing this, and you're going to see why. So poor quantity and quality of sleep has the potential to worsen blood pressure by disrupting the normal hormone balance and sympathetic nervous system activity in the body. That basically means too much fight or flight and not enough rest and digest. It's very important that we have this natural dip at night where our body gets a break from a higher blood pressure throughout the day that's required to move our body around and keep up with the increased demand and activity. When you sleep properly, you basically are supposed to get this 8-hour plus span of time where you get a break from the higher blood pressure. So lastly, it's also worth mentioning that poor sleep increases inflammation and is going to reduce the ability of the blood vessels to relax. That's very important. We just touched on that in the prior section about minerals, that those good, wonderful minerals like potassium, magnesium, calcium, they are involved in the blood vessel's ability, maintaining the blood vessel's ability to relax. So in a different way, sleep is also going to be involved with that same thing. So if you don't sleep well and you don't sleep enough, that can contribute to higher blood pressure or worsened blood pressure by impairing the blood vessel's ability to relax. So as far as how long in advance I'd be prioritizing my sleep leading up to the DOT physical, there's going to be a lot in common with the previous section on minerals. So minerals are key nutrients. It basically means your body needs them most of the time, day in and day out. Sleep is very similar in that regard. There isn't, a particular time that you need sleep. You need it as a part of every 24-hour cycle. So what I mean by that is ideally, I'd be trying to get the best quality and quantity of sleep year round. Obviously, the ideal is not always doable or practical, so I'd be paying extra close attention to my sleep 3 days out prior to the DOT physical, and the most importance given to the night before. Next thing I'd be doing leading up to my DOT physical to give myself the best odds is take any prescribed blood pressure medication as directed. So what I would be doing as far as this goes, I'd be taking the medication as directed. I'd be reminding myself that, I'm prescribed it for a reason, and these medications are efficacious, meaning they are effective. They are going to do something. In order for something to be an FDA-approved drug, it's a little bit different than the supplement industry. So the medication most likely is going to have an effect on my blood pressure, and not just a negligible effect where it brings it down, 1 point. It's probably going to be more significant than that. And I'd remind myself that, my doctor prescribed it to me for a reason. I probably have, hypertension, and these medications are going to work best. I want to emphasize this. I'd be thinking to myself, these medications work best in conjunction with lifestyle medications. So rather than over-relying on a medication to do all the work and telling myself, I can live as bad as I want, I'll eat all the sodium that I want, I'll be as stressed out as I want, I won't work out, I won't eat a clean diet or get a good night's sleep, and I'll just take this blood pressure medication and I'll be fine. I would be trying to use it to complement my other efforts in these other areas. I'd be doing my best to kind of behave, lead a good lifestyle, take care of myself, and to kind of give me that bit of extra help, take my blood pressure medication as prescribed. I'd also be reminding myself that maybe there will come a day where I don't need it anymore, if that's medically appropriate. But I think going into the DOT physical, having a little bit better of a margin, if that makes sense, giving myself every bit of extra help that might be needed, because there is a thing called white coat hypertension, and that means basically someone who tends to have higher blood pressure readings in the doctor's office than they would if they took their own blood pressure at home. And that has to do with nerves, kind of like being on the spot. The pressure's on, you're attached to the outcome. You feel like people are observing you or judging you. That's white coat hypertension. So again, my choice, if I was already given, blood pressure medication by my doctor, I'd be taking that as directed leading up to the DOT physical. I'd be following their instructions because I'd want to give myself the best chance that I could. So next thing I'd do prior to the DOT physical to give myself the best chances would be arrive early to the appointment and relax. So those of you who have already watched the first video in this two-part video series, you remember me talking about avoiding a negative state of mind the day of and listening to stressful music. So we had touched upon, that we don't want to be listening to really exciting, like high tempo or angry music, and we don't want to be reflecting on things that are negative or stressful or, just got done in an altercation or something like that. So what I would be doing is I would think about what time my appointment is, and I would play a little mental trick on myself and pretend it's, 45 minutes earlier than that, just so I don't, accidentally arrive just on time or late. You don't want to be all stressed out and flustered walking into the appointment, rushing in from the parking lot. You just got done, in traffic, or somebody cut you off and you're hustling through the parking lot, not wanting to be late or miss your appointment. All of this is going to elevate your heart rate. It's going to elevate your blood pressure, and it's something that I would be trying to avoid on the day of my physical. What I would want to do, I would want to get there at a decent time, well in advance, maybe even bring some headphones or some earbuds. I'm going to be arriving, way early, check in, fill out any paperwork I have to do, and then just chill, chill in the waiting room, listen to some relaxing music, do some deep breathing techniques. That actually is, really helpful. That's another thing that I would be doing. And I would just relax and then wait for my appointment. I certainly wouldn't want to cut it close as far as when I arrive. Next thing I'm going to do on the day of my DOT physical is make sure I stay warm. So as always, I'll explain what I mean by that and why I'd be looking to do that. So when I say stay warm, I mean if it's summertime or springtime and, they are blasting the air conditioner in the waiting room, which they could be, make sure you have a separate article of clothing with you, like a hoodie or a long sleeve shirt, and at least don't be cold. So when I say stay warm, I don't mean, you need to be feeling like you're in a sauna or anything like that. It's more important, at least, just not to be cold and make sure you're slightly on the warmer side. If you have an appointment for your DOT physical in the wintertime and you're going in, any of the cold states in the United States, which are quite a few, or pretty much anywhere in Canada, but, say you're going to a DOT physical in northern Maine or North Dakota, Michigan, wherever, somewhere cold, and you're somebody that typically doesn't bundle up. You go in with just a hoodie on and it's 5 degrees out or something like that. Don't do that. Dress properly, bundle up, be warm, and I will explain to you now what the benefit of that would be. So I think many of you are familiar with the relationship between temperature and pressure, probably within the context of tire pressure. You've probably noticed that cold weather tends to lead to a decrease in your tire pressure, and warm weather leads to expansion within the tire and an increase in pressure. Well, there's a relationship between pressure and temperature in blood vessels as well, but it kind of works the opposite way around. So warm weather is going to lead to what's called vasodilation. We've mentioned that several times, and that's associated with a drop or a decrease in blood pressure. So one of the reasons that the body does this is to release heat from the skin's surface. So when you're nice and warm like that, you're going to get heat coming out through the skin. It's going to serve to dissipate and get rid of some of that heat. And your core temperature is already warm enough, so it's able to do that. Now, when you're really cold, the body actually prioritizes keeping heat in the torso and making sure that your core temperature is okay enough, because it views being cold as almost like a mild threat to your survival. So it prioritizes where it wants the heat to go. And it doesn't really value keeping the heat in the extremities as much. So your arms, your limbs, they count as extremities. That's where the blood pressure cuff will go. And you could get an increase in blood pressure as a result of being cold and the consequent vasoconstriction, tightening of the blood vessels that would follow that. Last thing I do is insist that the official blood pressure measuring protocols be followed by the physician performing my DOT physical. So let me explain what I mean by that. There actually is a right and a wrong way to measure blood pressure. So there is an official, standardized way that's agreed upon by organizations like the Mayo Clinic, CDC, Harvard, entities of that nature for how to measure blood pressure. It's a standardized way of doing things that has to be adhered to in order for the numbers, the readings, to be considered usable, accurate, and meaningful. So why is that of significance? Well, it's of significance because oftentimes, either if we take our blood pressure at home, we may not be following that to a T. In the doctor's office, I've been to the doctor's office many times where they actually are not even following the specific guidelines and protocols for how to accurately take blood pressure. And one of the reasons why is you probably noticed that the doctor doesn't have a lot of time in their doctor's office. They're trying to cycle through patients quickly, get enough, see enough patients in their practice so that they're able to make enough money. You're actually supposed to be seated quietly for at least 5 minutes beforehand, with your back supported, sitting upright, and feet flat on the ground. This is in addition to avoiding caffeine, exercise, and smoking for at least 30 minutes prior to the measurement. So these are not my viewpoints. This is not my opinion. I'm actually reading directly from the official Mayo Clinic protocol right now. This is important. Why? Well, if the doctor was to call you in from the waiting room, well, you just got up and walked into the examination room. If you sit down and then immediately they plop the cuff on your arm and start pumping away, on that cuff and taking your blood pressure reading, well, that's actually in conflict with the whole protocol, the official protocol that I just read off, that I just mentioned. So what would I be doing in this situation? This is, a little bit of an ace card that I would keep, that I can play the day of the DOT physical. And I want to emphasize that you wouldn't be a smartass by asking the following question. It's not really being a smartass at all, actually. So what I would say to the doctor, if they weren't following that protocol, is I would say, Dr. So-and-so, would you be against us following the CDC or Mayo Clinic protocol for blood pressure readings today? Just let them, ponder that and answer the question. It's very unlikely they're going to say to you, yes, I would be against the following the official protocols, because you're not making that up. They would have to be disagreeing with the current data, the current body of evidence. And one thing about doctors that everyone's probably noticed is they don't want to incur any unnecessary liability, and they certainly don't want to deviate or go against the dominant medical opinion at any given moment. So it's important to know that doctors are practitioners, meaning they implement and put into practice what scientific researchers, a lot of the times PhDs or other MDs, find in their research. So they're implementing findings. Most of the time, medical doctors with practices are not also researchers. Sometimes they are, but the majority of the time they're not. So they are not making their own discoveries. They are implementing whatever is found, in the data, and that's what determines or influences what they prescribe or what kind of protocols they do. So doctors do not like to go against whatever the current consensus is on anything. It's very unlikely that they're going to take the risk to do that. So, these are all good things to keep in mind. It's just, if you had to, or if I had to, I would insist that protocol, that official Mayo Clinic, CDC, Harvard, protocol is followed, and that you get your 5 minutes to sit quietly so that you get a fair chance and an accurate reading. Now, there's a physician here on YouTube that performs a lot of DOT physicals for drivers, and it appears that that's what he does, is he gives people, that fair chance. And I think it's important to note, he does seem like a really cool guy, a very nice guy, but in addition to that, he's actually following the science, and it's good medical practice. He's not just, I want to emphasize this, he's not just like doing you a favor or being like a cool doctor, like wink, wink, I'll give you a few minutes. He's not doing that at all. He's actually doing two things that are really good. He's being fair to you as the client or as the patient, and he's also following the science and the official medical protocols for reading blood pressure. It's not just like, oh, he's a super chill doctor, he's going to let me, take a few extra minutes. That's appropriate. That's what you are supposed to do. So if I got, a person who, for whatever reason, if the doctor kind of seemed like they had it out for me, or they had a bad attitude, or, they were just sort of a hard ass, I might have to ask them, hey doctor, would you be against us following those official protocols for today? And most likely they're going to be like, okay, we'll do that. And then you get your 5 minutes. And most likely, I'm going to have a better blood pressure reading after given that opportunity.